All right, I'm going to try to show you how to take some Cornell notes over solving equations in terms of a variable. There are three types of problems you will encounter for this particular practice skill. So this first one we're going to call the factoring type. So I'm going to go ahead and start by dividing my page up. I'm going to use a slightly thicker pen this time so I can read it a little bit better. I'm going to divide my page up into sections. I'll put the date up here. It's 2/11/14, I believe. And this is solving equations in terms of a variable. Now, the point of this video is that you follow along with me and that you try to write the notes as well. I'll make sure that you can see it there. And so this is where our big question will go. And the big question for this one is, how do you solve equations with lots of variables? All right, so I'm going to label on this side, I'm going to call this type 1, and this is factor. And so I'm going to go ahead and write down the problem. So I have 5pq minus 5pr plus p plus 6 equals negative q minus 5. And so for this video, I may write some things in blue. The blue stuff that I write, you don't need to record. The blue stuff is going to be stuff I'm using just to try to explain what's going on, but you don't need to write that in your notes. Whatever I have in black, please do record. Okay, so when I look at this at first, what I notice is that I am solving for p. That's the directive. I'm going to write that up here. And when I'm solving for p, it's noticing that I'm going to notice that p is in all three of these terms, which is weird. We haven't really encountered a lot of that. And so we have to think back to a skill from 7th grade called factoring. And what that's going to do is it's going to pull p out of each one of these terms and put it on the outside of some parentheses. And then it's going to leave everything else in the parentheses. So I'm going to pull p out, and then that's going to leave 5 in q for the first term, minus, and then 5 and r are in the second term. And then if I take p out of the last term, I only have 1 left. And I'll talk about it in just a second, what I've just done is basically the reverse of the distributive property. And what I'm doing here is I'm rewriting this equation so that, this is one of those things you don't have to write, if I were to multiply this back out, I would get the original equation, the original expression back. And I'll just demonstrate that here for you. P times 5q is 5pq. P times negative 5r is minus 5pr. And p times 1 is plus p. And then I have plus 6 equals negative q minus 5. And so I get the exact same thing back. But we'll see in just a moment why what I've done is very useful to us, because I've actually just created what is now a two-step equation. And so I factor, and now the next step I'm going to take, this you should start writing down again. I'm going to take away 6 here, because it's added to the term with p in it. And so I'll subtract it from its like term on the other side. So I'll get p times 5q minus 5r plus 1 is equal to negative q minus 11. Okay, so I've got p times this crazy monstrous thing here, but thinking back to last semester, in order to undo multiplication, all I have to do is divide. In this case, I'm going to divide by the monster, 5q minus 5r plus 1, and I have to do the same thing to the other side, 5q minus 5r plus 1. You'll even notice that there's a lot of answers over here that look an awful lot like that. And so I am very close to an answer at this point because this whole mess cancels out. And I get p is equal to negative q minus 11 over 5q minus 5r plus 1. Okay, so if I am looking at my answers here, there's nothing that is precisely that, but I'm going to notice that this answer, the first answer here, q plus 11, and q plus 11 for the third answer, is exactly the opposite of what I have on my paper right now. And so I'm going to flip the signs, or I'm going to push the negative through. So if I want to change the signs on the top of a fraction, I need to change all the signs on the bottom as well so it stays the same thing. And so that's all I'm going to do. I'm going to change negative q minus 11 to q plus 11, but because I've changed the sign on q and negative 11, I need to change everything on the bottom. So it becomes negative 5q, then plus 5r, and then minus 1. And if I look at that now, I see that I have negative 5q plus 5r minus 1 under q plus 11, and so it sure looks like the third answer is the one that's correct. I'm going to click it, and for these ones you always cross your fingers, hope you made some kind of arithmetic mistake. It looks good. All right, so that's type 1. You can watch the next video to learn about type 2.